Hello out there in internet land. How are we all doing today? It's been a while, so I thought I'll just come online. Hello to those people who are joining us. I thought I'd come online and see what's been going on in the world of automotive and what I've been up to. So one of the things I've done actually just a few days ago is I put up a full review of the new Suzuki Vitara. I say it's new, it's not really new. I mean, it's been around for a while, really. But they updated it. You know, there was a quiet update that they did. Hello to Omar. Hello to Naila. There was a quiet update that they did last year, or actually this year, model year 2019, to the car. But the Vitara is one of those cars. I mean, Suzuki, of course, you know, everybody's been ranting and raving about the Suzuki Jimny. And I drove the Jimny recently, briefly though. Didn't do a full review on it or anything like that, but just briefly drove it. And it's very good. But the main appeal of the car is literally its looks and its persona and its style. I mean, you just look at the thing and you want it. I mean, that's what they have so successfully achieved with that car, that simply looking at it is enough for you to go, you know what, that looks cool, I want that. That's even before you've got in it. That's even before you've discovered that there is actually no room whatsoever in the back of that thing. And that's before you've discovered that it is actually dynamically, ideally suited for off-roading rather than on-roading. But it is an incredibly cool looking car. And as I say, it's stolen most of the headlines as far as Suzuki is concerned. But the Vitara then, so therefore, ends up an overlooked car. And that's a bit unfair, really, because it's actually really good. I mean, it's one of those cars where, you know, it'll take you by surprise. Because, yes, okay, it's a compact SUV, and you're like, well, you know, it's just another SUV, etc., etc. Hello to those people who are joining us now. But we talk about the Suzuki Vitara, which I've just reviewed. In fact, you can read the full review on BritishAsiaNews.com. Go down there, go into the motoring section, and I normally put up most of the stuff in their motoring section. So most of the stories in there are by me. I manage that for them. And I also put up reviews in there as well. So to see the full review, and in fact I've put the video review in there as well. Hello to Ahmed, who's joining us now on Instagram Live. I put the written review there as well. The review also actually is coming out in the Asian Leader newspaper tomorrow, but that newspaper is available only in Manchester. Wave into Ahmed, how you doing? Thanks so much for that on Instagram Live. That newspaper is only available in Manchester. So, but however, it is available online. You can actually read it online. So what I will do is, if you keep following me on browncarguy.com, just hit subscribe button there. And generally, when I put up content, I share it amongst all of my channels, so you shouldn't really miss anything. But anyway, so I've done a review on the Suzuki Vitara, and you know, I reckon it's really good. It's one of those cars where you don't expect much of it, and you know, this one in particular, this car, it's an SUV which is powered by a 3-cylinder 1-liter engine. I mean, 3 cylinders in a car like that. Now, a couple of things about 3 cylinders. They're making a bit of a comeback. There used to be a lot of those before. I'd say about in the 80s. A lot of small cars had 3-cylinder cars, especially from Japan. A lot of the K cars, you know, little ones, the micro cars had 3 cylinders. And now they're making a bit of a comeback, you know, because they're very, very efficient. But they've managed to eke out more power from those cars. I mean, this thing will do, I mean, the car itself, you know, it isn't particularly heavy. So it was like, what is it? Under 1,200 kilogram, I think. Yeah. And the power that the 3-cylinder engine puts out is 109 brake horsepower, and there's 125 pounds for the torque. Now, from a standstill to honestly around town, setting off from traffic lights or setting off, you know, anywhere, it never was an issue. It was a 5-speed manual, so that actually was good because that improved it. Sure, Manav. If you have any questions, please fire them. Manav27 on Instagram Live is asking, is this a Q&A? Yes, it can absolutely be. I was just discussing my opinion on the Suzuki Vitara, which I've just put up reviews on the British Asian News and Asian Leader coming out tomorrow, the newspaper as well. But you can find the links and information or most of my content on browncarguy.com. And I was just saying that, it's got a 3-cylinder engine, and you think, my goodness, 3 cylinders in an SUV. But actually, it'll take you by surprise. Like I said, over 100 brake horsepower, 125 pounds per torque. Again, if you look at the 0 to 100 figures, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, 0 to 62 miles per hour, it's not that impressive. It's 11.5 seconds. But in the real world, that translates to, being able to get anywhere you need to go and doing it really well. Now, aside from that, the interesting thing about this car is that it's actually quite fun to drive. I mean, I don't know, somebody at Suzuki is definitely a car enthusiast because they like to dial that into their cars. So it's not just the case, it's easy to drive, it's easy to handle, it does all of the things that you'd expect a small SUV, a family SUV to do. It does all of that, it does it very, very well. It's very convenient, very well packaged, but yet, there's a little bit of bit of engagement in this thing. It's kind of like, oh yeah, actually, I don't mind taking this out for a drive. It's because it's quite entertaining. So I think that's one thing that Suzuki do really well, and I'm really, really impressed with that. So that review is up. I put a video review up and a written review on British Asian News. You can also find the video on browncarguy.com. You can check it out there as well. I've been reviewing some other cars as well. Manav is asking, he's getting excited as well. Manav is asking on Instagram Live, how do I become a journalist like you? Well, you said journalist. That's interesting because you haven't said car journalist, because that's what a lot of people ask. Is like, how do I become a car journalist? And to which my stock answer is normally you don't. I just wouldn't recommend it right now. As much as you're not going to like hearing that, I think I think to be honest, it's got a limited shelf life, really, this career, because of the way that the car industry and driving and cars and traffic is going in general. I would not urge anyone to become a car journalist at this stage, and I have written about that extensively again on my blog, browncarguy.com. Go check it out. Just do a search on there for journalism or something like that, and I'm sure you'll find it. I did a video as well, and in fact I did do a video, Manav, which I think you should be able to find on browncarguy.com. Certainly on the Motoring Middle East YouTube channel you'll find it. And in fact on a podcast, so if you search for Brown Car Guy on the normal podcast channels, I think you'll find it there as well. And in that I did give some ideas on how to not so much become a car journalist, but get into the game of creating automotive content. And perhaps I'm leaning more towards taking the influencer route for people that are starting out now or that want to get into this field. And although we can have a long discussion about influencers, but I think that the way to do it now is the traditional routes of getting into car journalism, I think, are very hard, very difficult. It's a fiercely competitive, overpopulated arena that, like I said, is probably going to be dying out soon anyway. So it's not something that I would encourage anyone to try to get into right now. But if you feel the urge and the necessity to create car content, and there is scope to create great audiovisual content, and video content, photography, video, and etc., then I would look at the route of typical influencers, and I've talked about that extensively, like I said previously. Now, to come back to your question, though, you said, how do you become a journalist? Now, that I wouldn't discourage, because I think journalism now probably is more crucial in the world that we live in than it ever has been. Especially with the way things are going, and let's not get into too much politics here. This discussion is it's supposed to be about cars and automotive and the car industry. But if you just look at what's going on in the world, and you look at the sheer craziness, quite frankly, that surrounds us on the political stage, and also in what's happening in our day-to-day lives with crime and everything else. I mean, living here in London, the instance of knife crime is just staggering. I've never known it to be London to be a city like this before. But I think that that certainly proves that there is a need now more than ever for good journalists The only trouble is that how do those journalists survive and thrive in an environment that's basically so much more commercial than it's ever been? You know, the funds and the resources are not there the way they used to be for journalists. You know, journalists, and I'm not talking car journalism, I'm talking general journalism. You know, a journalist could go off, and if he's got a great hard-hitting story, you know, there's nothing to stop him going off and, you know, spending a month, 2 months, 3 months investigating a story, and that would be fully sanctioned. In the nature of the industry as it is now, you know, it's all about immediacy of content, immediacy of doing stuff, and doing it on the lowest possible budget with the minimum possible resources being used. So that actually does stymie a lot of effective journalism. So it's a difficult arena to get into. But anyway, so if you want to go down that route, then obviously there is the educational route. Hello to Sharik, who's joining us on Instagram Live. There's obviously the education academic route. You go through university and go that way. But I would actually say that if you were going to become a journalist, I wouldn't necessarily do a journalism degree. I would get your foundation, your basics in terms of journalism, but I would specialize in an area. So for example, say you want to be a political journalist, then do a degree in politics. Say you want to be a criminal investigative journalist, then do a degree in criminology. That gives you an area of expertise and specialization, which you can then sell as a journalist, and actually gives you instant credibility to go out there into the media field and thrive as somebody who knows what they're talking about. So, or the alternative route to that is to, you know, just start writing to lots of local newspapers and magazines and websites and blogs, and just see if you can get some work on there. Start writing letters, start sending in opinion columns and stuff like that. Get yourself out there, get yourself published, build up a portfolio of content, and then you have a base from which to start and a base from which to go around and apply to people for jobs and for opportunities in that arena. So I hope that that's answered your question, Manav. Manav wanted to know, Manav who's joining us on Instagram Live, wanted to know how do I become a journalist? And I took that to be a generic question because he didn't say car journalist, but anyway, I've covered that as well. So the other thing that I'm really pleased with over the last few days is an article, feature story actually, that I've been working on for a while. In fact, went live on drivetribe.com. I'm a contributor to, a freelance contributor to drivetribe.com. And the channel, my channel on there is Brown Car Guy Tribe. You go check it out. And I just did a feature on there in which I shot a 635 with a 635. Yeah. So what I did is I took a 60-year-old camera. And in fact, you can just, if you're on Instagram Live, you can just see it on the shelf above my head there. I took a 60-year-old camera and went out to shot a nearly 40-year-old car. So the BMW M635 CSI, which is owned by BMW UK on their heritage press fleet. And in fact, they've had that car a very long time because I borrowed the same car almost 10 years ago when I was doing a feature for the Middle East edition of Car magazine. It's the same car, and they still have it, and it's still in the same condition as I remember it, and it's the same to drive, and it's so cool. And so what I decided to do, hello to inlux_original, thanks for joining us on Instagram Live, and then what I decided to do was to take this old Yashica TLR, which is twin lens reflex. Yashica, and the model number of it is 635. It came out in 1958, and the update that they did to the camera was that it was a dual film format camera, in that it could take 35mm film as well as 120 medium format film. The only thing was that you needed an adapter to do that. I no longer have the adapter, so I can only use medium format film with that camera. So the idea was that I borrowed the car and I shot about 4 rolls of film and 12 shots each of this car with a classic camera, which is all a bit nerve-wracking really, especially when you've pitched a feature on it and you've borrowed a car and you've got a few hours only to shoot this car and then return it. And don't forget, with these old cameras, you can't see what you've shot. So you've done the settings, you've taken the picture, and you've no idea how the picture came out, whether it's overexposed, underexposed, whether it's a blur, whether it's sharp, whether it's been double exposed. you know, if you forgot to wind the film forward, you can actually double, triple expose the film, you know. Whether the film itself has been spoiled when you were taking it in and out of the camera. It's all a bit nerve-wracking. So I had a light meter app on the phone, which helped me to shoot the pictures. But that was it, really, and the rest was guesswork and hope and optimism and prayer. And thankfully, it all worked out, because then I dropped the film off at a shop in central London called the Aperture, and a few days later picked them up, and lo and behold, they weren't bad, actually. I was actually quite pleased with them. They came out all right. In addition to the pictures and the whole feature story that's on Drive Tribe, my son also did a fantastic video to go with that. Hello to Astaponzo, who's just joined on Instagram Live, who did an entire video to go with that. Hello to Drive ME Online, man. How you doing? He's just joined on Instagram Live. Good to hear from you. I hope you're well. I hope all's good with you. So I'm just doing a bit of a catch up on what I've been up to and what's been going on, and taking any questions if you have them as well. So very pleased with how that feature came out. Please check out that feature. Great video to go with it as well, and the full gallery of pictures shot with a classic camera of the BMW M635 CSI, and what a car! What an absolutely awesome car! Hello to Hassan Amir Awan, who's just joining us on Instagram Live, and that feature, like I said, is live now in the Brown Car Guy Tribe on drivetribe.com. DriveTribe.com is a fantastic platform, founded by, of course, Clarkson, Hammond and May of Grand Tour and previously Top Gear fame. And it's a great platform that actually anybody can get onto and anybody can contribute to. You can create your own tribe and put content on there. So it's a wonderful arena, really. Somebody was asking earlier, Manav was asking earlier, you know, how do you become a journalist if you're thinking about being a car journalist? And one of the things would be to contribute to a platform like that and to see if your content could get noticed, and that certainly would set you off in the right direction. So what else have I been up to? I've been testing a few cars. At the moment, I've got a Fiat Abarth 595, the ultimate little pocket rocket. I think it's about 180 brake horsepower, and it's got an absolutely mental exhaust on it. It's absolutely ridiculous. When you start it up, people jump out of their skin. It's totally bonkers, but a wonderful little thing. I will be doing a review on the car soon, so I don't want to say too much about it now. We'll probably talk about it again maybe in a future blog, podcast, whatever. Hello to Rainbow Send _ UK. Thanks for joining on Instagram Live. But I would say fantastic little car. Not something that it's not something I won't say it's not something I would not want to own, because that wouldn't be correct. I would have to say it's not something that I could own. And why? That's a very particular reason to me, which you'd have to find out. You'll have to wait for the review, and in which you'll find out. But it is an incredible machine that's, you know, it's an absolute ride. It's an absolute hoot. And what else have I been driving and testing? Oh, one thing I did do, which I really, really enjoyed, and again, do go and check out the pictures for that, is I went to the Concours of Elegance in Hampton Court Palace, and yeah, what a fantastic event! What an absolutely glorious event! Fantastic weather that day. That's always a good thing. And beautiful cars, absolute stunners, like, you know, the creme de la creme, as they say, of the automotive world, and some amazing machines there. I posted all the pictures again on browncarguy.com, and I've posted quite a few of the pictures also on my Instagram feed, both at Shazad Sheikh, and which is what you're viewing me on if you're on Instagram Live, and on at Brown Car Guy. If you do happen to go to at Brown Car Guy and follow that, by all means follow that, but do follow my main account as well, because that's where I put most of my other stuff as well. But yeah, some great cars. I really enjoyed looking at Harry Metcalf's Harry's garage display. I was hoping he was there, but he wasn't there that day, unfortunately, because I'd love to have spoken to him about it as well. But he had a Pagani Zonda, he had a Bugatti B110, and he had his famous Testarossa that he'd driven to the Sahara. And it's a great lineup, and it was interesting to actually watch a video of his recently in which he was talking about Lotus and Lotus's hypercar, Hello to Antonio, how you doing? Joining us on Instagram Live, the owner of a fantastic Citroen CX Turbo, which I drove recently. A quick review of that is also online. Streaming interruptions, says Drive ME online. Apologies for that. I don't know, it's fine from here. I've got pretty good internet connection. So I'm not moving and nobody else is using my internet. So it should be okay, but anyway, bear with me. I hope it's okay. But yeah, so wonderful to have driven that Citroen that Antonio owns. That was a real joy, and it was actually part of a fantastic event, which again, you'll find full coverage of that on browncarguy.com, in which I got to drive 9 fantastic cars. Was it 9 or 8? I can't remember now. I think it might have been 9. Might have been 8. I can't remember. Anyway, I drove some fantastic cars in the course of one day, including some great classic cars, such as Peugeot 205 GTI and a Ford Capri and a Vauxhall Forenza and probably something else I've forgotten, and also reacquainted myself with an NSX and also Honda Civic Type R, which I hadn't driven before, and I probably wasn't expecting to like as much as I did, but it kind of blew me away. And some other cars, which are escaping me at the moment. But anyway, going back to the discussion I was just having about Harry's Garage's display. And it was, he spoke in his video about when he did the run to London to see the Lotus Evija, about whether, electric hypercars are relevant, and the fact that you needed the emotion of, a loud petrol-engined supercar to really feel that kind of attachment and empathy or a feeling towards supercars. And let's be honest, he's got a point, because supercars, they live in a rarefied atmosphere. They're not supposed to be mass market cars. They're low volume cars. They're basically poster things. They're things that you need to put up on the wall as a poster. There's something to dream about, and part of that equation, is the engine. That's the heart of a car, as far as we know. And believe, especially if you're a petrol head. And there is I can understand the headline grabbing PR and marketing sense of creating these electric hypercars, and and it is also a statement of technological achievement, so it all makes sense. But can you feel them? Can you do you get emotional about them? Do you get passionate about them? I don't know yet. I probably need to see, experience, touch, feel, drive one myself to really know if that's possible. But I certainly can relate to his point of view that they're not necessary, because at the end of the day, they're not going to make a huge difference to the environment. Of course, your electric Ford Focuses or things like that, on that sort of scale would make a difference to the environment. But not hypercars, not supercars. It's just not that many of them, and even the ones they don't get driven that much. A lot of them will just go into collections or come out on rare occasions anyway, so they won't make much difference. So, but other than that, it was a great show. Got to see some amazing cars, a couple of amazing, fascinating cars that had very strong Indian connections. So there was a Napier that belonged to what at the time was the richest man in the world. He was the Nizam of Hyderabad in India, and he was the richest man in the world, and he had a fleet of these. And this Napier, which was stunning, actually lived in his UK residence, because he's the richest man in the world. This is just extraordinary. And the funny thing about this car, although it lived in the UK, belonged to this Indian guy previously, and we're talking, what was it, 1920s, was it? 1919 Rolls-Royce, so around that time. But in the last few years, I don't know when, but at some point it was sent back to India to be restored in India, and then came back here. And if you saw it at Hampton Court, it was just absolutely stunning. It was just like, you looked at it and you said, there's no way it rolled out of the factory like that. That's how good it was. It was like, no, even the factory at the time couldn't have produced it to that quality. It's just not possible. So amazing work. And then the other one was even more interesting, because it was a very flamboyant and extraordinary looking car. Again, it was a what was it, 19, sorry, the Napier was 1904, I got that wrong. This Rolls Royce was 1919. And 1919 Rolls Royce Silver Ghost, I think. And it had these kind of conical shaped wheel covers, it's incredibly flared wheel arches, all done in mirror finished metal. I mean, it was stunning, you know, and it was used for hunting, so it had 2 rifles on each side, you know, actually mounted onto the car, you know, and it still got them. So that was incredible. And this belonged to the Maharaja of Patiala, you know, and it's just one of the cars that he had. An incredible story. As I've written up about both of those cars in particular also, you'll find them on browncarguy.com, so go check them out. But yeah, some incredible cars. Beautiful Di Tommaso that I saw there, fell in love with. Incredible Bentley number 1, the supercharger. Hello to Zaid, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Hope all's well in Audi world there for you. He's joining us on Instagram Live. Fell in love with this Di Tommaso Pantera. Of course, there was a Lotus Esprit that I'd met before, 1987 car, I think belonging to Peter Boita, which we had featured and interviewed the guy for the Belgravia classic car show earlier this year. Again, you'll find that on browncarguy.com. That car was there. Didn't see him, unfortunately, this time, but the car looked fantastic. Lots and lots of great F40s, McLaren F1s, McLaren done up in Marlboro livery, which was really good. So yeah, I mean, lots of incredible machinery. So really, really good event. And even the car park just going up to the event was stunning. There's so many great cars in the car park itself before you even got there, and I posted those pictures up as well. 288 GTO Ferrari parked alongside the new, what is it, F8? Tributo, whatever it's called. And you know, I do like it. I do like the new Ferrari. It's really good because it's basically just an update of the you know, 488. And the 488 Spider to me is my favorite current contemporary drive. Hello to Twin Turbo Mark, how you doing? Joining us on Instagram Live. My favorite current contemporary Ferrari, so I'm only assuming that the F8 is even better because, you know, I'm sure they've just improved it even more, and it does look pretty good. So I like it. And now they've introduced a convertible version of that, and they've introduced a convertible version of that and of the 812 Superfast. So which is, I think, just called the 812 GTS. So out of the two, even though the 812 is bonkers fast, and I have driven it, God, it's shockingly fast, but I definitely have the 488, or in this case the F8. But having said that, it was parked right next to the 288 GTO, and I'd be like, no, I'd have the 288 GTO any day, because that thing is just a legend. I've always torn between what is my all-time greatest, most desired Ferrari, and it's either the 288 GTO or it's the Ferrari F40. I can never quite make up my mind. But yeah, those two cars, for me, wow, just incredible. So what else I've been up to? Other things that have been going on. I've done a feature actually on rickshaws, the London rickshaws. I've done that. That's been that was one of the things we were talking about journalism earlier, and sometimes you take time to create a feature. That took me several weeks to do, because there's several weeks into London trying to find people, interview them a couple of times just to go and take pictures and stuff like that. That feature appeared in the National in Abu Dhabi, but you can find it online. Again, the link is on browncarguy.com. Go check it out. Fascinating, these rickshaws, very colorful, but very controversial as well at the same time, because, you know, they're not licensed as cabs, although they're not illegal, because there's a loophole in the law that allows them to operate, but they're not, you know, they're not regulated. So that's why some people talk, you know, you've heard stories about people getting ripped off and stuff like that, and it's not surprising because there's no regulation when it comes to these taxis. But some of the cabs are very colorful, the bike cabs or pedicabs or bicycle taxis, whatever you want to call them. And some of the characters are fantastic. There's a particular guy, Selim Sultan, who I interviewed a couple of times. Check him out. He's very big, flamboyant, fun guy. He's from Turkey, and if you want to have a ride in one of these, I would look for him. And he has a green pedicab. Normally hangs out by the side of Bond Street. sometimes in front of Selfridges. But yeah, well worth. And if you do get into his pedicab, then say I sent you, because that would be good. So that was quite cool. What else have I been testing? I've also tested the Toyota Aygo, and again, that was a car I really liked. And it was one that I've been looking forward to for a while now. I've been wanting to try that for a while, and finally got a chance to do it, and actually really, really good car. And to be honest, like around town in London, the fact that it doesn't want to use any fuel, with manual gearbox, so plenty of fun, quick enough, light enough, 800 kilograms. I would have almost said it was the perfect car for London, except for the fact that if you intend to carry any rear passengers, you cannot. It's just too tiny. I mean, it's just, there's no way. But if it's only occasional, and maybe you're small and the passengers that you carry aren't that big either, then you could maybe get away with it. And if you could, then for the money, with the kit that's on the car, the price, I think it was 12 grand, the performance, the ability, the compactness, the agility, and the actual fun to drive aspect of it, I thoroughly recommend it. And the one I had a full-length electric powered canvas roof, which is kind of cool because it just felt like driving a convertible little hatch around. It's really good. I also have driven, anyway, review on that coming soon. I've also driven the Subaru Forester, a car that I hadn't driven before. So that was quite interesting as well. And again, a review coming on that. That's very much a car that's still very much about sticking to its heritage and its roots of being an all-rounder, specifically when it comes to off-roading. So a very, very strong offering there from Subaru, and again, watch out for that review coming soon. I will certainly stick the video up on browncarguy.com and put links to other channels there as well. So just before I close off this session, I just want to touch on the new Defender, because I put up a post on that, which actually was a highly engaged post on my Instagram feed, on this Instagram feed if you're watching me on Instagram Live, and I got a lot of comments on that one, and looks outdated already. Why? It's the brand new Skoda Yeti, isn't it? The Pontiac Aztek looks nicer. The Multipla is better than the, oh my god, the unholy love child of an FJ and a Suzuki Jimny. Oh my goodness. This, I'm sure it's a capable 4x4, but it looks like they gave the design job to Posh Spice and said, make it look at home in Chelsea via Seoul. Oh, and give it the worst rear lights you can imagine. Oh my goodness. And some people have compared it to the Honda Element. Drive, what is it? Perfect for the next drive to get a lacto-free pumpkin spice grande coffee and your vegan burger. That's actually very creative. I give you that. I think it's a bit harsh actually. I think it's all a little bit unfair, because at the end of the day, the Defender, you can get misty-eyed and rose-tinted about the Defender, but I'll be absolutely honest with you, that Defender was old. It was old. I mean, and yeah, okay, you say yes, but it's so capable and so competent. Well, two things. First of all, it's not really. And I'm coming from the Middle East perspective. Yes, it is in terms of what it can do, but it's one of those cars where, what did they used to say? Was that in Africa? That was in Australia, I think. Didn't they? If you want to go into the bush, you take a Land Rover, but if you want to come back, you take a Land Cruiser. And I think in the Middle East, it's a similar story. Durability, ability, dependability, reliability, ruggedness to go into the desert and come back out again. You're looking at Toyota, Nissan, even Jeep, especially Jeep these days. But you are not going to look at the old Land Rover Defender. As good as it was, as competent as it was, it was out of date. It didn't have that modern engineering and research and development hadn't gone into it for it to be able to withstand the conditions, the environment, the weather, and all the rest of it. Now, but the nostalgia trip was great. Also, additionally, for me, I found it uncomfortable to drive. I couldn't drive it for more than 2 hours, unless I know taller guys that own the car literally have the seat customized. They take it off its rail and put it back so that they can fit. Hello to Erhan, how you doing? Long time joining us on Instagram Live. Nice to see you. But yeah, they actually have the seat remounted back so that they could fit. So when I took a press car, for me, being long legs, 6'2" with very long legs, I'd find it very uncomfortable. And it was old, and the stereo and the AC, and it's just, it's a great car of its time. But you can't keep saying, oh, but that's the Defender. It's like, yeah, okay. But, even if you look at its contemporaries, if you like, Mercedes have dramatically updated the G-Wagon, especially with the last update they did. That really was an all-new car, and it is so much better for it now. And they've kept the same character, personality, but which again, maybe works to their advantage or to their detriment, because then you could look at it and say, well, how has it been updated? But actually, it is dramatically updated. Jeep have done the same thing with the Wrangler. It's constantly evolved and constantly improved, and it is an amazing car now. And it is comfortable and spacious, and it's got all electric everything, and all the comfort and all the gizmos and everything you want is all there. That's what they've done. If you jump into an original Jeep, Willys Jeep, there's no comparison. Vaguely the silhouette is the same, but there's no comparison. You'd struggle to drive those cars for more than an hour unless you're a diehard enthusiast. But the modern Wrangler is a fantastic car. So, having put all of that into context, I think that they had to do something dramatic, radical, and different to the Land Rover Defender to bring it bang up to date. And I think that that's what they've done. They've turned it into a competent, comfortable, modern car with modern equipment on it. A car that you'd have the AC on, the stereo on, you'd be comfortable, you'd be cruising around, and yet you'd be conquering the Sahara or climbing up the wadis or whatever. Because for sure it's going to be an incredibly competent, I haven't driven it, but I've driven Land Rovers in the past. I've driven Range Rovers. And you take a humble Range Rover Sport, take a humble Range Rover Velar, and I've seen it do things which you think, no, if you owned the car, you would never do them because you'd be so fearful of it. And that's one of the things, they're expensive, so you'd be so fearful of it. But I've been on press events and stuff like that, and press launches where they put these cars through their paces, and they let us put the cars through their paces, and you just go, wow, I just never could conceive that car could do that. And that's not even, that's not even dialing the off-roading scale up to 10. With the Defender, I imagine that Land Rover had dialed the off-roading scale up to about 11 with this car. Yeah, okay, it's not body on frame, it's a monocoque, whatever. But I'm sure that they built it for structural rigidity, for solidity, for strength, it's got the green oval on it. It's got to be good off-road. I like the way it looks. Yeah, I can see the comparisons to the Yeti and the Honda Element, but I think that in the metal, I think it'll probably have very much its own identity. It looks pretty funky. It looks pretty cool. It looks a bit Tonka toy, honestly. So I quite like it. And I like all the different versions of it. So you can have, the snorkel and the ladders on the side. I like that. I like that they're offering all of these opportunities, the big old bull bars at the front sort of thing. Not metal, of course, but, So I'm looking forward to seeing this car in the metal. I'm looking forward, hopefully, to even one day driving it, because I think it looks cool. I think it's funky, and I think it's going to do really well. And I think the prices they're expensive. It was never going to be a cheap car. It's a Land Rover product, so that's a given. But then perhaps, was it starting at 40 grand? Starting at 50 grand maybe for the 4-door? I don't think, in that sort of market arena, it's possibly not as expensive as maybe some people thought it would be. Of course, let's see how it ends up in the real world. But to be honest, you can order them now, so those are the prices. So, I'm going to defend the Defender, at least until I've driven it, because I was quite taken with it. I was quite taken with it. So, and there was a big story from Frankfurt. It was funny, because once there were a few trickling bits of news were coming out of Frankfurt, and then the Defender came, and then Frankfurt just stopped. That was it. That's Frankfurt. Everybody at Frankfurt just went home and just forget about it. That's the star of the show. That's the big news. The rest of us aren't even going to bother. Honestly, there was nothing. There was that's a car. That's it. Frankfurt, halas, finish. So, so with that, halas, I think it's time for me to wave goodbye as well to Instagram Live viewers and stop this little discussion. And hopefully maybe pick it up again at some point. I hope you guys enjoy that, and see you again soon.